Good morning. It's Monday, September 15th, 2014. This is Tech Talk Today, episode 58. And my name is Chris. And whoa, what a weekend it was. Did you see the big news? Microsoft announces they are purchasing Mojang, creators of Minecraft. This is huge. We saw the early rumors last week, and this morning it was confirmed bright and early by Microsoft and Mojang jointly, as well as a statement that was posted on his website by Notch. So to help me digest all of this, I have assembled a team of internet experts with deep histories in both internet, gaming, Microsoft, Minecraft, and pontificating. Time-appropriate greetings, Mumble Room.
Time-appropriate greeting.
Hello.
Well, 2 out of 5 ain't bad.
I was wondering if anybody's going to call me on that. All right, so let's get into our top story today. Microsoft has announced, and Mojang has confirmed, that they have sold to Microsoft for $2.5 billion. This is a big purchase for Microsoft, especially in the shadow of announcement of recent layoffs, which I think is particularly interesting. So a lot of people are scratching their head. A lot of people are concerned, and some people are excited. So I want to break down some of what we do know at this point and some of the speculation that's going on right now. Interestingly enough, there's been some speculation that perhaps it was Notch himself that instigated this purchase. Not that they weren't courted by Microsoft for a few years now, but it was finally, maybe it's been suggested by Polygon and also by Reuters and by Bloomberg, so 3 different sources, that potentially it was Notch himself who sort of began these initial round of talks that led to this purchase. That'd be big news, and it would follow kind of in sync with something that he posted on his website, which has been cross-posted on Pastebin, and we'll have a link to these in the show notes, about why he's leaving Mojang, and about how he really doesn't want to be a game developer. He just wants to play making games. Of course, wouldn't we all? So let's talk about this, you guys. What do you think? Anybody in the chat room have immediate reactions? I've got some speculation as to why Microsoft would do this. But does anybody in the chat room, or in the Mumble Room, I'm sorry, have any speculations on why Mojang? Why would Mojang do this?
Well, it's like I said before. He obviously developed this to eventually sell it, and the idea that he's leaving Mojang after selling it tells me exactly that. He wanted to make money off of it. He made a lot of money, and now he's set for life.
I've never really gotten the sense from Notch that. So I've attended 2 talks at PAX, and one of them I went up and talked to him afterwards by Notch, and I think it was at least the last one I went to. I think it was the last one I went to with Chase, and if I could say anything, my impression was he definitely was just really in it for the technology, for the code, for geeking out. Not for the money. In fact, the money is. I got the impression. Now, maybe it's just something he put out there. Maybe it's just an appearance. But I really got the impression that the money was sort of an evil, a necessary evil, so that way he could accomplish sort of what he really wanted to do, which was have fun making games. So I don't know if he. I don't think he ever created Minecraft to ever have it be popular. So I think assuming that he created to sell it is sort of a misnomer, because I think he never intended it to be popular to begin with.
Okay, I'll agree with that. He didn't intend it to be popular, but once it became popular, I'm sure at some point he had a price tag.
Yeah, I agree with that until somebody offers you $2.5 million. And
exactly.
Like, okay, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know. To me, that's just a convenient out for him because he never wanted to be there in the first place.
Right. I mean, that's
a good point.
And so here's some reasons why I think it's pretty clear. There's a lot of good reasons why Microsoft would want Mojang and Minecraft, but here's a few to consider. Mojang gives Microsoft a really big asset and a community that could cultivate a younger demographic, which is a great point. I mean, this is huge among kids, basically my son's age up to adults, right? But it's really big among kids, really, really big. It's like the new version of Legos for them, only bigger than ever. The future of Microsoft revolves around mobile too. I mean, they're all about that, right? Their top priorities are cloud and mobile. Those 2 things are their number 1 priority, so they've got to take actions to help lock those things in. And if you look at iOS, Minecraft is huge on iOS, and you could see how maybe Microsoft is looking at that going, boy, we could use this on our mobile platform, right? And if they control the assets, if they control the product, they could move it over. Plus, it could be on the Surface, right? You could even put it on the Surface. Mojang would make perhaps an Xbox spinoff more feasible should Microsoft go that route. They say Microsoft has noted that it's keeping Xbox, but Minecraft would give the gaming unit another key title to go along with games like Halo. You could see maybe over time it would be kind of like that. I don't know. That would be a pretty big change on. That'd be a pretty big change on the way Microsoft would be managing the community if they made it a Microsoft exclusive title.
Yeah, I was gonna say if they made it exclusive to like the Microsoft online store, like you'd buy through Windows 8 or buy through the phone or buy through Xbox, then yeah, I could see that.
Here's another thing
Potential.
that made Mojang ripe for the picking for Microsoft. Microsoft's using some of its overseas cash pile that it holds outside the U.S. So their purchase of Mojang is the 4th international company acquisition in 2014 alone. Yeah.
Interesting.
So you have something that looks like it's rumored to have been instigated by Notch, potentially. You've got Microsoft, who... See, my biggest thing is there seems to be a bit of an impedance mismatch. The way Minecraft is... Notch said this himself, and it really is almost legitimately true. In a big part, Minecraft is really owned by the community. Like, what could Microsoft... If Microsoft ever wanted to do something that the community as a whole wouldn't be okay with, I feel like they would just find a way to make it work, a hack, or they would fork or something. There would be an open source, there would be some of the open source ports out there might get more momentum behind them and they become compatible with the existing servers or whatever. Like, I feel like the community has so much control over Minecraft and its future direction that there isn't a ton of room for manipulation for Microsoft to come in at this standpoint. Rikai, I don't know if you're still here. What do you think of that aspect? Do you think the Minecraft community is strong enough that if Microsoft were to make some sort of big policy change that nobody really like say no more independent servers, all servers had to be on Azure, something really big like that, do you feel like the community couldn't the community just go off and do their own thing and say, screw you, Microsoft?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of alternative implementations of servers and clients out there already. So if they did something too crazy, they'd end up just basically killing the product that they just bought.
Yeah,
and would just move to another platform.
I don't want to think Microsoft is that stupid, though. They're already making a ton of money off of all those other platforms, like everybody playing it on PlayStation and people playing it on Linux and stuff.
Yeah,
They're still
I think
making money off those people, and it just wouldn't make sense.
right.
The whole thing about this that makes sense is what you said about the licensing and being able to make spin-offs of that, like TV shows and stuff. I'm
Right.
pretty sure that's why they wanted to do it.
Right, yeah.
For that reason.
And if you think about this, right, when they're making this purchase right now, one of the things that makes Minecraft a valuable commodity is the community that Mojang has cultivated that has grown up around Minecraft. That's one of the things Microsoft wants to buy into because this is something they fundamentally internally have not been able to cultivate and develop. They haven't been able to make something like this because it doesn't really fit their corporate culture. Now they're hoping they can buy a corporation that has that culture, that has cultivated that type of community, which I think their intention here is they're not just buying the source code. They're also buying the community that they've created, this obsessed community. So if they blew that up, if they ruined that community, if they screw it up, they would be devaluating what they are paying for, right? They would be taking away value from the thing they're trying to do. And Microsoft estimates they'll be profitable with this purchase by 2015 because they're going to focus on movie licensing, merchandising, things like that. They believe that they have an opportunity here to make Minecraft easier to multiplayer stuff, easier to do the hosting. They think they can streamline a lot of that. They think they can merchandise a lot of that, and they think they're going to make this $2.5 billion back by the end of 2015.
I mean, I can see it. I can see them making like a Lego movie type of deal,
Right.
but with Minecraft.
That
I
would
can
be
totally
interesting.
see that.
Yeah.
Everything is awesome.
Yeah, right. Although I don't know if it'd be as good. So
No, but I could definitely see them doing that.
you got to figure though. This is now a huge Java application that Microsoft now owns. Not exactly Microsoft's bag. This is something that has a ton of Linux server deployments. Again, not something that's going to be a huge issue for Microsoft, but not exactly their zone. There's a Linux version for the desktop. Now, Microsoft has said we have no intention of making any changes to the platforms we currently distribute, but when they listed all the platforms, they did not actually list Linux. They listed PC, Mac, something, like, Xbox, whatever, and then left Linux off. Now, that might have just been an omission. Maybe it's included in PC. Maybe it's a bit of a warning sign. I don't know. I'm a bit concerned as a Linux user that maybe they'll trail off. I mean, to be honest, I feel like Microsoft hasn't really stepped up to the plate on Skype for Linux. And I'm wondering if anybody in the Mumble room has any thoughts either way on maybe what the fate for Minecraft under Linux will be.
Oh, that's the biggest fear, is that it's going to be a problem between Skype for Windows, that problem that it created. Yeah, I'm right there with you, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
I honestly don't think they're dumb enough to change that, though. They're still making money off them either way. So, I don't think they're dumb enough to make that choice. Go Windows only.
I feel like it's kind of comparing apples and oranges, because with Minecraft, it's Java-based, so it's pretty much the same across all the platforms without a lot of extra work.
Right. I agree. That's why it would be surprising if they did that, because exactly that reason. So we'll see. Boy, I think this is something we'll probably talk about a few more times this week. And if you have any thoughts out there, we'd love to hear them in the feedback thread so we can incorporate them into future discussions. techtalktoday.reddit.com. So I talked to my buddy Chase this morning. He's at work, so he couldn't join us. And he thinks overall, he's pretty connected to the Minecraft community. He co-hosts Minecraft Me, a popular Minecraft podcast. And he thinks overall it's going to be a good thing. Sort of like my look at was when Facebook bought Oculus, is if they're able to keep them operating independently enough but give them deep pockets so that way they can maybe do things they couldn't have pulled off before, maybe have more of a back-end infrastructure they couldn't have had before, maybe a little more staffing they didn't have, something like that, then that could be a good thing. Where it could go bad is if Microsoft sees this as an opportunity to sort of push the Windows mobile platforms and Xbox platforms forward with future Minecraft exclusives. Maybe they would never do anything to the main Minecraft Prime, quote-unquote, but maybe there'd be future editions of Minecraft, like themed versions or whatever it would be that would be exclusive to Microsoft platforms. I think that would be a direction I would be sad to see if things went that way. Of course, I talked to my wife, Angela, who's also a big Minecraft fan this morning, and her main concern was more of a loss of another independent thing, something that was unique and independent and created by just regular old people, small startup, has now been consumed by another corporate monstrosity. And she's kind of sad to see something like that go, because it's kind of, it was artisan gaming. And even though Mojang had grown over time, they still weren't anywhere near the size of Microsoft. So she's a little disappointed to see it go from that direction. And I didn't have a good response to that this morning, because unfortunately it just seems to be the way it is. I mean, there'll be new games, there'll be future games, and maybe Notch will go on to create something on his own.
I was going to bring it up, and you said it. I would love to hear what Chase and Joe have to say on this on their podcast sometime.
Yeah, that'd probably be interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Also, I want to touch on something you did say earlier, that Minecraft is mostly geared towards kids, and that's going to be kids playing on Windows devices mostly and on Xboxes. So I don't think they're going to really care which way until the point when, if they decide to go after people posting on YouTube. That's the one thing I'd be concerned about, is when they try to go after copyright claims and stuff.
Yeah, hopefully they won't go after that stuff. I have a sense Microsoft's savvy enough that they won't do that.
Because that's what really made Minecraft so big, was just the YouTube community.
Yeah, very much. And they actually made specific mentions that, they want to continue to encourage the growth of their YouTubers and things like that. So I don't sense that's an issue. What you got to wonder, though, is would an independent Mojang had been more comfortable integrating something specific to Google, like publish to YouTube, or something that, maybe a really deep, tight integration with Twitch, maybe even from the server side, where the server could stream multiple streams to Twitch or something like that. And now that these are competitive entities to Microsoft, will we see those types of things come into the game? I would say probably not. So those could be ways that the game could be silently never something the game could never do now that maybe it would have if it was independent. So I can see where Angie's coming from that standpoint too. It's like maybe we would have seen something unique, some partnerships that would have had reasons to blossom that now will never happen because they're competitors. Who knows? Who knows?
On the flip side of things, you got to look at it this way too, is now that it's Microsoft, you got to think of all the extra developers that are going to be able to come in and think about all the graphic improvements they can make to the game and everything. So that could be exciting too.
Yeah.
The other side.
Yeah, very true. And like my buddy Chase said, is maybe we'll see a really decent API worked out now or something like that could really blow up. Maybe we'll see, this is probably super never going to happen. Never, ever. But I would love to see I never got into Minecraft. I never even bothered with Minecraft on the tablet or on the Xbox, because who the F wants to be locked off in an isolated little server world? I want to go play on the Jupiter Broadcasting server. I want to go play on somebody else's server. I'm not going to play on a platform that won't let me play on any server I want. Maybe that could change now. No, probably not though. Probably not.
And it's not like you need a $1,000 computer to run it too.
Right, yeah, exactly. We got lots more info in the show notes if you guys want to go check that out, including I will have a link in there to Notch's post. And I hope maybe Mike and I can discuss it from a developer's perspective in today's Coda Radio, which will be coming up, I think, noon my time. So if you want to join us live, you can do that. And I'm dropping at the bottom of all of the Mojang coverage, we'll have a link to Notch's post, which I thought was really interesting. And he talks a lot about kind of what led him down this path. And he sort of talks about, well, but you always said this, or you always claimed this, and he responds to some of those common things that people are saying on Twitter. So I think it'd be a good read if you have the time. All right, our next story is just sort of just the tip. We're going to get just into the tip. It's another major Snowden revelation that I'm just beginning to follow this week. But first, I want to mention the Patreon page. Go over to patreon.com/today. This is a way you can help support all of the shows on the Jupiter Broadcasting Network, and it keeps this show going as well. Now, we have definitely seen a big slowdown on our Patreon. It seems like it's stalled out quite a bit, and I think that might just be because I'm not mentioning it as much. But this is really critical to future expansions. There's things that we definitely want to be able to do. And the idea behind this monthly pledge is that this is a fixed amount that we can count on for planning and don't necessarily need to add a whole bunch of advertising. I'm not necessarily opposed to right advertising, good advertisers that match with the audience. That's really what I try to focus on now, more than ever. And the way I can do that is by having leverage to say no to a lot of people. And that sounds like something crazy, but that's actually a big part of how we pick our advertisers. In fact, all of the advertisers on the Jupiter Broadcasting Network right now have approached us. And that's because that's out of the group that we've said yes to. And the way I can say no to so many people is because of your support. Your backing allows me to stay independent and keep focused on just the advertisers we need to bring the revenue up to the point to keep the lights on and take care of all the business stuff, pay the hosts, all that kind of stuff. And then this money here helps us invest in the network without having to sell out too much. I think it's just the right balance because it keeps our revenue sources coming from multiple differentiated sources, so we're not dependent on one thing that could fold out. And as you know, on the internet, that can happen just overnight. So this is a critical way also of keeping this network on the air over the long term. Patreon.com/today. Go there, pledge if you can afford it. Any amounts really appreciated. And that keeps all of the shows on the air. We've got some recommended pledge levels. If you scroll down, just go down a little bit more, past the description and all that good stuff. Boom! There's a recommended pledge levels where you can jump in at and kind of gives you an idea of what your contribution goes to. Plus, at the very top of the pledge, we have the Swag Club, which there's some swag going out soon. When Ange comes in this week, I'll have her update you guys on that. So patreon.com/today. Patreon.com/today is where you go to support the entire Jupiter Broadcasting Network, and we celebrate it right here in the Tech Talk Today show. Thank you, everybody, and thanks to all of our patrons. All right, let's talk about this Snowden story that's kind of gotten new legs. It's not 100% a new revelation, but new details about the depth and scope of what the NSA and the GCHQ has done. This is according to the Spiegel Online. Snowden documents indicate the NSA has breached Deutsche Telekom. Now, this is a massive breach, not just your average breach. What the goal here was, and this is part of a program called Treasure Map. You got to love these NSA names. Treasure Map. It even has its own logo with a skull superimposed on top of a compass. That's pretty epic. And the whole idea is to map the entire network. Now, the New York Times talked about this a while back, and we've talked about this in Unfilter months ago. The idea here with Treasure Map is literally to map every single node that's connected to the internet. And that also means nodes behind routers. Anything that eventually has a path out to the public net needs to be mapped. Every smartphone, every printer, every VoIP device needs to be mapped. That's part of the Treasure Map initiative. I know, it sounds crazy. You'd think more people would be talking about this, but they're not. However, Der Spiegel is, and they did a little investigation. They went and talked to Deutsche Telekom after digging through some of the Snowden documents. They sat down with Deutsche Telekom folks and said, here's what we found. And they showed them some of the reports. And in these reports, it blew the Deutsche Telekom admins' minds. They had usernames and passwords to the servers. The NSA had mapped the entire network of their internal network behind their firewall. In the text, just right there in the report, some bureaucrat wrote their admin login in the report. So these guys spend millions of dollars securing their network, making sure everything's locked down, and then it gets breached by the NSA, and some bureaucrat puts it in a report, and it's just sitting there in plain text. They were, you can imagine, a little incensed. They had proprietary customer information, like some of their customers, what satellite uplink and downlink node numbers they were using, which is supposed to be confidential information. They even had that map, so they knew where people on satellite connections, what nodes they were using. I mean, it is amazing. Now, here's the problem. It's a little bit challenging to parse all of this because it is through a translation. Der Spiegel is a German paper. And so if anybody out there has any primary English sources for this follow-up story, I would love to get that. If you could submit that to unfilter.reddit.com so we can do a full analysis in Wednesday's Unfilter. This is, I mean,
cyber warfare.
They talk about, too, in these documents, like the sysadmins at the telecom were listed as selected targets for full-fledged monitoring. Like those guys leave work and go home and they're full-fledged, capture everything monitored just because they happen to work at a telco that they might need to breach in the future. Because they're sysadmins.
Yeah, it's just cyber warfare, straight up.
I can only imagine the amount of processing power you need for all that.
If you speak German, I have the story linked in the show notes. In there, I think that video, I don't speak German, so I don't know. But in that video, they appear to be going over some of the findings with the sysadmins, and you can just see their minds getting blown. I just can't believe. In fact, they have it quoted right here when they showed them the notes. The sysadmins would write on the side of the report. They would write their notes so that way the Der Spiegel could go back and write it up. And the one note when they got to the admin username and password that was just listed right there in the report, F word exclamation mark underlined right there on the notes. The admins were not happy with that one. So yeah, an amazing story, and it shows you just not only the depth of the NSA stories that have yet to be reported on, but how there's a lot that hasn't even come out from the Intercept, which is supposedly where we're supposed to be getting this stuff. This was Der Spiegel, which whatever. We'll be following it on Filter. Let's talk about Android One before we get out of here. This is big. I think this is going to be Google. I think this is going to be one of the biggest things Google has done with Android, and I think it's also going to be a massive competitive twist that vendors like Yalla, Firefox, Sailfish, Ubuntu Touch are all going to have to try to compete with now. So Android smartphones are officially being released in India by 3 companies. And here's how Google's doing this. And it's pretty interesting to see, like, you almost wonder if this is how they would do Android proper if they were doing it now in their current position. So the handsets provide a minimum of features that gets determined by Google, and then Google has pre-sourced many of the components. They've pre-purchased them and then resell them to the manufacturers at a much lower cost. So Google's essentially subsidizing a lot of the components. The company's also teamed up with local carriers to pay to essentially make it cheaper for users of these Android One devices to download apps from the Play Store. Like in one example, the largest wireless carrier in India gives users now, thanks to Google, 200 megabytes free to the Play Store. Of course, I'm sure Amazon loves that because now who the hell is going to use the Amazon App Store when you get 200 megs free if you use the Play Store? Net neutrality be damned. Thanks, Google. But these people, they are working on very limited budgets. It's all about saving money. So Google's trying to help out in that way, I suppose. If it screws with net neutrality, that it doesn't matter. Do no evil. Here's a couple of minimum standards these devices need: 4.5-inch display, 1 gigabyte of RAM, a 5 megapixel rear camera with a 2 megapixel front camera, a quad-core processor sourced by a specific company that Google mandates, and the ability to run the next version of Android. So you need to be able to run the current version and the next one. Now that might change in the future depending on the state of Android development. In addition, they've been tailored to suit the local market by including a micro SD card slot, replaceable battery, a built-in FM radio, and to run 2 SIM cards simultaneously. The phones are, for the first batch, expected to run around $105, which is, €65. I think that's about that. Contract-free, which is nice. There will be about 400, this is an estimate, 400 million smartphones sold in India over the next 5 years. This is according to a forecast by PricewaterhouseCoopers. They think the majority of those at that price point, at the $105 price point, will be Android One phones, not Firefox phones or anything like that. They think Android One's going to run away with it. Because essentially the way it works is these carriers now go to Google and they have what Google calls a menu. And on this menu, they order the type of smartphone they want with the components they want, and then they assemble it and ship it out. So it's sort of like it's a carrier phone in the sense that they customize it at a component level, it gets shipped with Android One, and then they distribute it out there. What do you guys think of this?
I find it interesting that it has to have an SD card slot when really even the Nexus doesn't have an SD card slot.
Yeah, I guess that's just, sort of what they expect down there. The market expects. I think I find a few things interesting about this. Number one, Google's kind of taken the Microsoft Windows Phone route and saying, you can make anything you want as long as it's at least this. That's interesting. Number two, I think it's interesting that Google is pre-buying the parts for these manufacturers, which suggests to me that the actual market cost of these parts is not where it needs to be yet to make Android One truly profitable and sustainable, because Google essentially is subsidizing the components. And then, on top of that, Google is subsidizing the data. So there's a lot of market position that Google's able to use here, a lot of money reserves Google has to essentially steamroll a lot of the more independent, smaller startups like Firefox OS, like Ubuntu Touch, that couldn't afford to do these things.
I don't know, though, because it's still Google, though, and they probably still don't trust Google in other countries, so they look at Firefox, and it's going to still be much cheaper than any Android phone out. So.
I don't know. I think, Riley, I think you're undervaluing how much trust consumers put in brand when they're trying to buy a device they don't know much about. They don't have a lot to go on other than brand because they don't understand the specs.
Though. I mean, that's a good bit of change. Like.
Yeah, but that's the same argument people made about the iPhone. Oh, the iPhone's too damn expensive. Nobody's going to buy that.
That was the U.S., though.
Yeah, so, well, no, I think the iPhone does pretty well in the entire world. I mean, my point is in some ways, sometimes we go into these markets saying nobody will ever pay these prices, and then they sort of get like this status symbol to them, and then all of a sudden people are, standing in line to buy these devices. I don't know if that will happen or not, but the other thing is a lot of these folks will be able to look at this as this can be an Android device is much more capable of being their true, genuine main computing device. And a lot of these developing areas, they're just skipping over desktops. They're skipping over that, and they're going right to mobile and wireless. And so they only have one computer. Now, if you're only going to buy one computing device, if you honestly could only have one computing device in your entire life, I would go with an Android over a Firefox OS device any day, because
same here.
There's just so much more I can do. And they're not dumb. I mean, they know these things. They know about apps. They know about the internet. I mean, they know about this stuff. That's why they're offering them 200 megs free data, because they know that's what these people want to do with these devices. That's why they want Android.
When it's $100 device, though, like how much of that can you actually do? You're not going to be able to run modern apps on it.
It's got a quad core. Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, that's the thing, right? Because Google's buying halfway legit parts here and subsidizing the cost. So they're actually...
then it might be different because,
2 gigs of RAM. Or 1 gig of RAM. Minimum is 1 gig of RAM. 5 megapixel camera. Yeah, I know, right? yeah. Send it over here, Googs. Come on. All right, guys. We're going to get out of here.
For real, man.
Thanks for joining me. And audience out there, if you have any thoughts on the whole Minecraft purchase or any of this stuff, please go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact, send in a contact form, or even better, the subreddit techtalktoday.reddit.com, and please help us keep going, patreon.com/today. I'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, over jblive.tv. I'd love to have you join us. Be here Monday through Thursday. And later upcoming on the stream today will be Coda Radio, and then tomorrow, Linux Unplugged. So join us. We got lots of good stuff still coming up for the rest of the day. You can always tune in if you're catching this at the right time. Or go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar, and you can find all of our times and the robots converted to your local time zone. Since we've been talking a lot about Microsoft and their moves in the gaming industry, I want to take a look back at when Microsoft first jumped in. Like whole hog. I mean, they've been making games for a long time, but when they made the Xbox, that first big old Xbox, they weren't quite sure on the messaging and the tone of that messaging. And there was one commercial that I thought was great, but was banned from the air. Now, it is very visually heavy. So just picture a baby being, you know what? I'll just see if you can put it together if you're listening on your own. I don't want to describe it to you. Now I can see why they banned it from the air. Now that I was about to describe it to you, it now all makes sense. If you're watching the video version, here you go. Microsoft's introduction of the Xbox, when they weren't quite sure on how to get the messaging right.